Now, this video is for those of you who are really interested in starting to use your Moxa in practice and unsure about what Moxa to use where. Now, if you're more interested in learning more about some techniques in Moxa, I would highly suggest checking out my quiz. It's going to be in the description box below. That quiz will give you the answer to which of my online, both YouTube videos and also paid courses would be best to help your practice moving forward. So go ahead and check that out. What I'm doing here is palpating the abdomen. Now, I go through this in a separate YouTube video about showing you the basics of palpation that I use in the style that I practice called the Yashinomichi. We utilize a Shanghan Lun-based Hara diagnosis. And you'll notice here that I'm using a little black marker to notate places that I really want to treat. Now, for this patient in particular, I'm trying to treat her back pain by treating the front to treat the back. And so here I'm really looking for places not only that have deficiency, but also places that are extremely ropey. Notice I put 3 places on her abdomen to treat, but I'm only going to treat one of them. And what I'm going to do is focus in here on the deficiency to see if the ropiness goes away. Essentially, how much can I tonify to allow the surrounding tissue to relax and have dispersion without me having to disperse. So this is really great because it allows you to have a more simplified, more specific treatment without having to do a ton of other things on the side. Now I'm going to be using a half grain moxa practice here. Really notice how I've set up my hands. I'm also tenting some of my cones, and that is to make sure that it's just the right temperature for my client. You do not necessarily have to tent if you are using ShinKyu cream underneath your moxa. I do tend to tent for a lot of my cones simply because I want to make sure, just in case it's too warm, that my hands are there to control the heat flow. Now, I am not touching my moxa when I control it. All I'm doing is sitting there and hanging out with my hands to make sure that if I need to control that oxygen, I can to slow down or speed up the burn. That doesn't necessarily mean that I am tenting it with every cone. Now, if you utilize half grain moxa in your practice, I would love to know. Go ahead and put that in the chat below. Tell me how you use your half grain moxa, and more importantly, how would you love to use it? So I'm going to continue to really tonify this moxa. Notice that I'm able to talk with my client, I'm able to have a discussion, and the whole time I'm going to continue to repalpate my point and make sure that that point is tonified or that it needs more. So consistently asking the question, have I done enough? Should I do more? Have I done enough? Should I do more? And also another very important question to ask, am I doing the right thing for this person for this point? Now, depending on the patient, you might not be, and goodness knows there's many times when I have not been as well. So checking in consistently with the point and really making sure that you are doing exactly what that client needs is exactly what you should be doing in your practice. Now, there's a few other things that I'd love to point out about as I continue to do half grade moxa at this point. First off, I am personally not using ShinKyu or purple cloud ointment under the point. And then also that even if my patient's belly moves, I'm consistently just moving along with her and then consistently repalpating. Have I done enough? Should I do more? Have I done enough? Should I do more? And then as soon as I place my moxa cone, notice that I have my next one ready. So I'm creating my next moxa cone in my hands while I am placing and lighting and controlling the previous cone. Now, for many people, when you've learned how to do moxa, you've learned to do it in between 2 boards. I am a proponent very much so of being able to create your moxa roll in your fingertips without having to have that extra step. Learning how to roll with your fingertips without using the boards is definitely more difficult. This is something that I go over not only in ShinKyu University, but also in my in-person workshops. I host those year-round in all over the world. So if you are interested in learning from me both in person and online, again, I highly recommend checking out the quiz in the description box below, and let's see what avenue for your learning style, for how you want to learn and where you are in your interest in traditional Japanese medicine, what's the best course, what's the best workshop for you to take. So notice here, continually making my cone with my left hand and placing with my right. Now, I often tell this to my students, if you are a left-handed human being, possibly switching this around and mirroring what I'm doing. So rolling with your right and placing with your left might actually be a better fit for you in your hands. I would say traditionally in Japanese culture, everything was still done with the right though. So it's a little bit hard to say that you should do things as according to how you were created, but it's probably going to be easier for you if you don't follow tradition at that point in time. That's my personal opinion. Now, how I roll moxa and how I teach moxa is really in accordance to how I was taught moxa. So I just want to make sure that everyone realizes that this is not my creation. I have not created anything. These are not my ideas. I learned all of my moxa actually at a school called Toyo ShinKyu Senmon Gakko. If you're interested in my school and my education, I have several videos here on YouTube that you can check out. I'll go ahead and link those in the description box below as well. But if you're interested in really checking out the school, every other year biannually, I actually take people to Japan to learn in the school that I learned at and graduated from. Now, how I learned my education and how I learned moxa was not to start rolling, placing, and burning on people, but actually to start rolling, placing, and burning on a piece of tissue, actually two-ply tissue. I actually have the entire methodology that I was taught in school to learn moxibustion here on my YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and check that out. In fact, there's a whole moxa playlist on that. And I actually started my moxa practice actually not in school, but as an assistant at an acupuncture clinic called Akira Harikyuin or Akira Acupuncture Clinic, located in Tokyo. And I was really lucky in that I was an assistant even a year before I got into acupuncture school, and that all of the other assistants who were working with me were so kind, were such good people that they actually took their time to take me aside, teach me the basic practice, and then I went home and practiced like mad so I could also practice on patients when I was in the clinic and start to learn. So I actually started learning on my own before I got into school, and then was able to take that practice and really have it blossom while I was studying at Toyo Shinkyu. And so I was really blessed to have extremely good teachers throughout the entire time that I have been studying this medicine, from both apprenticeship to school and post graduation. Now, saying that, I do not have the perfect moxibustion practice compared to the person who taught me, Suzuki Sensei. There's a lot that you could probably say I could do better in this practice. What I'd really love to see, though, for you in your practice is that you're starting to feel the moxa with your hands, that you're starting to feel if that moxa is too warm, if it's too dense, if the cones are too big, and then learning how to control that afterwards. Now here I am taking a needle and I am placing the needle, so I'm going a little bit against what I said I was going to do in this video, but that's because I decided to do needle top moxa and just give her a little bit more tonification. So let me explain the difference between half grain and needle top. Half grain moxa is an incredible way to tonify at a specific point, a very, very specific point, rather than a wide area. And it's going to act a lot like a needle in that we're going to have consistent heat tonifying deep into the muscle structure, especially in the variety of half grain that I was just doing. Saying that, needle top moxa is going to be even more tonifying. And so that means that we have a needle not only placed and retained, the easiest way to retain with a needle is to place and retain, but then using needle top moxa, because that really makes that more powerful. Notice that with my needle top moxa, I created a ball with my hands, pulled it apart, and then placed it back together on the needle. Now this is just one way to do needle top moxa. I want you to notice too that I'm going to hover a little bit. Of all the moxa types, needle top moxa is the one that I have the most anxiety about. I really do not want that little ball to fall on my clients. I have had a really bad experience in the past that I tell all my students about. So please be very, very careful with your needle top moxa. Of all the kinds that you do, needle top moxa has the most potential to burn your patient. Saying that, needle top moxa feels really wonderful and is extremely tonifying. Now, once you get to this place in the burn, you really don't have to worry as much about that needle top moxa either sliding down the needle or falling off for some reason or falling apart. So that's why I take my hand away, is because my anxiety was definitely pacified. I felt very confident that that moxa was going to stew and stay where it was supposed to. Now, In my defense, the only time, just to tell you that story of where I've had this go awry, is when I was an assistant before I was even in acupuncture school, and we used the cold version of needle top moxa, and I went to take one off because we were in a rush and we had to get it out, and it was still hot, and unfortunately it slipped out of my tweezers and fell onto the client. That was a very, very long time ago. I did very much burn the client, and I will never forget her face. I will never forget what happened. And it was just a very sad day for everybody involved. And so since then, I've been extra, extra careful about how I do needle top moxa, when I utilize it, and making sure that if I'm going to take the risk of doing needle top moxa, that my patient very much needs that tonification and that strong, deep tonification. Now, again, I'm doing this moxa here. I'm doing both needle top and half grain because my patient has a lot of back pain. And I really want to tonify her lower jaw to help alleviate the back pain. So I'm actually, rather than dispersing for this client, I'm tonifying, and I'm not even treating her back. This video actually does not incorporate um, what I was doing for her back and also for her energy. She was also extremely tired this day. Um, but at the end of the treatment, her back felt so much better and she just felt so much lighter and had so much more energy. So it's just a really, really great treatment. There, the patient had a nice deep breath, and you can see her breathing has actually slowed and gotten deeper. And that is a huge sign that the tonification is doing its job and that it feels really, really good for the client. And that's a natural reaction that you're going to see very, very frequently with kids and adults. So here, my needle top moxa is completely cooled down. I'm going to make sure I put it away accordingly. Notice I'm touching the shaft of the needle here. This is on purpose because the handle is quite warm, and I didn't want to use a tissue to hold on to it. Always be careful when you're picking up that moxa needle because it can be quite hot. So here I have the patient check in with her abdomen and feel how much fuller it is and how much more relaxed her abdomen is. Just to kind of prove to the patient about what is happening here. And then, of course, continuing to repalpate and recheck in with everything, like, are those 2 points on the side of the abdomen sufficiently dispersed, sufficiently relaxed? And so again, if you were to be doing a Shanghanlin presentation on the sides for these ropey muscles, we perhaps would do something like a bai xiao or a da cao, or like something like a xiao yao is going to be in there. So I'm just making sure that this is more relaxed. And here I'm kind of just showing this ropey muscle and how it leads up behind the back and behind the neck, and just saying, hey, I'd really love to treat a little bit more in here. And then it kind of goes all the way down into the hip and then down. This patient is a runner, and so she has really tight psoas, and she can get tight back muscles and gallbladder channels. So that liver channel is also going to get very, very tight on the deeper level. And so that's why I was like, hey, I just want to relax this one ropey muscle that I'm not satisfied really relaxed. So we're going to do just one more point here on the side. Now I use my permanent marker because it's a lot easier to do your moxa when there is a point to see and to touch when you take your hands away. So this you don't have to do as much with your needles because you're utilizing your oshide, or what we call our guide hand, right? So we're utilizing that, so we don't have to have those points and those markers. And going through and just double checking, okay, have I gotten everything that I like? And how is her Kyokyo Kuman right now? Yeah, that's pretty darn tight. Now this is a little bit more palpation than I would probably do. So once you've found a place that you're like, I really think that this ropey muscle hasn't been resolved, you want to double check your findings, make sure you understand the breadth of that finding, and then you're going to want to, of course, explain to your patient if you can, and then choose your point to treat. So that is really what I'm doing here, is I'm going in and trying to release just one extra point on the abdomen that I wasn't satisfied had truly relaxed. So trying to go in and create more qi flow and qi circulation. Notice that after insertion, I'm doing a very slow technique, moving my hands a little bit and really trying to tonify and bring blood and qi to the area. This is the definition of a tonifying technique. Now, I know you're like, well, I thought you said that it was a really ropey muscle, it was really tight and very much connected to the top and the bottom as I was showing when I was palpating, but that is because the lack of qi stagnation and deficiency was creating that muscle tension going all the way down the leg, all the way up to the back of the head. And so what I'm doing here is, again, trying to tonify in order to relax and harmonize the tissue. A lot like, as I mentioned before, your datsao or your baishao herbs would do. Now, the beauty of using acupuncture and moxibustion, baishao, of course, being a good herb to relax the superficial muscle tissue, and datsao for deep muscle tissue, is that we can do all of those just utilizing one needle. So it doesn't have to be a really convoluted technique. We don't have to do separate techniques. We don't even have to split up the time in which we're doing those techniques. We can just do them one at a time. So again, using my half grain moxa to really tonify the point. Notice I'm not working quite as quickly as I did on the previous half grain cone, just going a little bit at a time in order to tonify this muscle structure and really help it to relax. Now, once I'm done and I feel satisfied that the point has been tonified, I'm going to, of course, repalpate, double check my structure, which you'll see me here do in a minute, to make sure that my treatment is done. Thank you so much for watching through this. Hopefully it gives you a hint on how to use your moxa going forward in your practice. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video as well. And if you're really interested in continuing your moxa and acupuncture practice and really learning traditional Japanese medicine, I highly suggest that you check out my quiz below in the description box and/or set up a call with me. Let's chat about your practice and see where you're at. All right, thank you so much for watching, and keep practicing.